looking really good. It's been a couple of weeks since we got you on Dents of Insta. Obviously, you were telling me that you finally moved back to the States. The first time we had you on, you were in Dubai still, but you've been to Kenya, you've been to India, you've done dental school in the States as well, and you've done all sorts of bits and pieces in between. So it's definitely something we need to hear about.
Yeah. No, I'll kind of walk you through my life, a very brief version of the last 32 years of my life. But I was born and raised in India, and that's where I went to dental school initially. And I started my dental school in 2006.
Mm.
I was to USC in LA, and that's when I kind of decided that I really wanted to come here and just go ahead with my international dentist program. 2012 happened. I moved to Colorado, and that's when I did my DDS over here, and I was practicing in Illinois. I was first in Chicago.
Oh, cool.
Absolutely loved my experience there. I worked in a very low income practice, but it was a great learning experience. I moved to a hospital after that. It was more of a community health center, also in Illinois. That was for a year. Um, and then I was kind of figuring out my boyfriend at that time, now my husband, we were trying to figure out where we wanted to live. And we
Yeah.
decided to give Dubai a try, which is why I moved to Dubai in 2017. And then I practiced there as a general dentist for the last 3.5 years. Pretty soon into moving to Dubai, I realized I wanted to specialize in peds. I was
Always peds for you, or did you have any ideas of, oh, maybe I'll do, I don't know, oral surgery or orthodontics? But was it always?
peds for me. It was always general dentistry. I was so sure that I wanted to do general dentistry for life.
Yeah.
But I think I worked at a few practices which were had a heavy focus on pediatric dentistry. Um, and then, not everyone is made to work with kids. That's what a lot of my friends tell me I'm crazy that I went back to school, to be a pediatric dentist. I don't think everyone's made for it. And I don't think, I felt like I didn't have it in me. But then when I started working in a pediatric practice,
Yeah.
um, that's when I figured that I saw myself getting better at it. Um, and I really started enjoying it. And I don't know what it is, but maybe my sense of humor, kids just somehow respond really well to it. So I felt like it was fun at work. And of course, there's always kids who are screaming bloody murder, and that happens as well.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I started really enjoying it. And then at some point when I was in Chicago, I went to the second city in Chicago, um, and I started taking improv classes. I don't know if everyone knows what improv is. Some people think of it as comedy, but it's more, it's a form of theater where it's an ensemble or a group of people on stage, and then the audience kind of throws suggestions at you, of an emotion that they want to see or a relationship that they want to see on stage. And then the moment the audience says something like, okay, I want to see anger between a father and daughter, and the scene begins. So it's a lot of like thinking on the spot. There is no, time to process it even, and you just go with your, first initial thought, and the scene kind of begins. So I felt like improv really helped me just on a personal level, talking to people, and then so much more with kids because with adults, I feel like we overanalyze and overthink everything before we actually say it. Kids have that. Kids don't have a filter. So I actually feel like kids are the best improvisers because they'll just say it how it is. Um, and I somehow started using some of my improv games with the kids, and I just realized this is what I wanted to do. Moved to Dubai after that, where I worked in a pediatric practice as well. I went through a few practices. It was kind of hard at first finding a place where it's hard to find a job where you feel comfortable. I feel in general, and then moving countries, getting a license, there was all of that, and then it took me a while. I went through two different clinics, and then finally reached a pediatric clinic where it was what I wanted to do. But again, being a general dentist, there were so many limitations that I had. Uh, yeah, and that's when I decided to apply to school. My husband was really supportive about it. The application process is quite an intense process here in the United States. It usually is a year-long process, and it took me 2 years to move back. So I started my application actually in 2018, around May or June of 2018, and I only made it here in July of 2020. So it wasn't like, oh, I want to go back to school, and it just happened. It took a long time to make it happen. Yeah. So I think dentistry, doesn't change. You as a dentist, the way you practice, the equipment, all the facilities, all of that remains very similar between the US and UAE. But I think it's patient expectations that are completely different. I grew up in India, and going to a dentist was something you did when you were in pain. It was for, preventative appointments. Here in the U.S., it's a very set system. When you turn age 1, you bring your child in to see the dentist. You come in every 6 months because your school requires a dental clearance form from your dentist. So it's almost like ingrained in the system, which is why they're having fluoride every 6 months. We're really doing preventative care rather than treating the child. I mean, of course, that happens all the time as well, but we significantly reduce the number of cavities just by a lot of preventative care. Now, that doesn't exist as much in Dubai and even in UAE. So Dubai, for example, it's a city of expats. There's probably about 18% local Emiratis in Dubai, but the rest of the people are all expats from all over the world. Yeah. So based on which country you're from, it just depends on how your upbringing is, whether you go to a dentist just for emergencies. And I felt like that was a lot of what I saw in Dubai. People came in for a lot of pain-related appointments. And while I was there, we did a lot of with my clinic, we did a lot of oral health awareness campaigns and talks in schools. So I do feel it's shifting towards preventative care, but I don't think it's going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while. So aesthetics was huge. In Dubai, everybody wants a Hollywood smile. Um, Everyone wants whitening. Even with the kids, like in the US, putting stainless steel crowns or silver caps is very common. Over in Dubai, parents will want zirconia or white crowns for their children. So I felt like because of that, aesthetic was given a much bigger importance than I see anywhere else. Then, of course, I went to Kenya, where it was like a whole different world altogether. I actually went to Kenya while I was practicing in Dubai. I took a few weeks off, and it was more of like a volunteer clinic that's been around for about 10 years. It was actually started by dentists in California, and it's partly funded by Loma Linda University, which is in California. So it's actually a very well set up clinic. The equipment, the chairs, the materials, everything comes from the United States. So you would think that, oh, I'm in the middle of nowhere. But actually, I was surprised when I went there. Like all the instruments they had, the materials they had, it was top notch. Um, so, so it was in Masai Mara. So you land in Nairobi, and then it's about a 6.5 hour drive to get to the Mara, and it's literally in the middle of nowhere. So it's just the African savannah all around you. There's a few lodges people go for vacations, but this clinic was an independent building, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. Um, it's very well, it's a good functioning clinic. It runs year round, basically with dentists who volunteer. But it's such a unique, cool opportunity that it's actually hard to get an opportunity to volunteer there, which I thought was strange because I was like, oh, like I'm just gonna apply and go. No, it took me 6 months to get a spot to even go and volunteer there. Um, yeah, it's all booked up. The moment they open up the years, and it's usually you can do 2 or 4 weeks at a time. There's a lot of dentists who have, decided to retire in their career and then they just want to go spend a month in Africa disconnect from everything because there's very limited Wi-Fi or cellular signal. Um, so, it's not something for everyone, but it really helps you disconnect from everything.
Right.
For me, uh, I felt like I was reaching a point in my career where, in Dubai, there was so much aesthetics, aesthetics, aesthetics. That's all I could hear, Hollywood smile. And I just felt like I needed to reconnect with why I got into dentistry in the first place. I'll just reconnect with myself, I felt at some point. So when I heard of this opportunity, I thought it was really cool. Um, it's literally a very busy clinic. It only serves the Maasai tribes. Um, so how it works is the Maasai people live in small villages which are called maniatas, and there's a village head in every maniata, and so it'll be one village head coming with all the kids of that village. So I'm so used to parents bringing in children, doing consent forms, and all of that. It was very different there. I mean, first of
Right.
all, the kids were fearless. There was barely any behavior management that we even needed to use because I think the kids have bigger worries. Like they're taught to fend for themselves. And okay, if you see an elephant, how do you climb the tree? Like these were the things that they learned, which to me would just blow my mind. Um, so, for example, we were in a gated community. We were not allowed to leave that unless we were escorted by a local Maasai or my clinic manager. And these kids were walking through the village to come to the clinic. So that means they're exposed to the animals at all times. But they're so well trained, they can tell if there's an elephant coming their way, or they'll hear a sound and be like, "Oh, there's probably giraffes in that direction."
That's crazy.
And yeah, so it was really cool just to see how different the way this child has been brought up, their lifestyle is so different. Um, I went to Kenya. They still, I don't know, I guess they've heard of it online, and I still would get asked about whitening, which I thought was kind of interesting. But everyone wants a beautiful smile. The one thing that I found really strange is I don't know if you've seen pictures of the Maasai tribe, but they tend to have a midline diastema.
Right, so
Pretty,
I can what you're talking about. Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, whether it's in the maxillary dentition or the mandibular, in general, the jaws are a lot bigger, so they tend to have, and then it's just passed on. So and I mean, the human body and the jaw is constantly, evolution is happening. So now when the teeth are starting to crowd up, there's no option of orthodontics. But to the parent, it just seems bizarre that instead of, having gaps in between their teeth, suddenly their teeth are crowded. So I would have parents come in and ask me to extract their lower central incisors because they thought it was strange that there was no gap there. And so there was a lot of, just talking to the parents about how this is actually normal, and no, you don't want to, and if they had their canines which were slightly, coming in buccally or cervically or whatever it was, they wanted them
That's crazy.
extracted. And the sad, yeah, but the thing is, what I was told by my village head or my clinic manager was like, hey, if you don't do it, they're going to take those kids home and do it without anesthetic. So either you really have to communicate with them as to why you don't have to do this, or suck it up and do it. And that was a huge no for me. So it was a lot of, anticipated guidance with the parents, just talking to them. And there was also an issue of, language barrier. Luckily, my assistants spoke English, and they spoke Swahili and Ma, which is the traditional language of the Maasai tribe. So I feel like a lot of the times we were successful in communicating. Sometimes they would just wait for 2 weeks and bring the kid back in with the next dentist that comes, hoping that maybe they'll do it or just do it themselves at home.
Wow.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting for me. It was a lot of extractions. In general, I feel like we've studied about it, how genetics plays a role on how your bone is. So the bone in African population is a lot denser, so extractions were a lot more required a lot of like muscle. But there was also a lot of periodontal disease. So yeah, I feel like I was there for a couple of weeks and I did like over 150 extractions because I was just popping teeth all day. Um, but I mean, it was a unique experience. There was this one time where I gave local anesthetic to my patient, and then literally outside the window, I see like a deer. And I'm like, where else in the world am I going to have a patient here? And I look out and there's like a deer walking around. And then right outside, there was this one time I was walking to my lunch. We had a little guest house where they prepared lunch. And then I heard this weird sound and I asked my manager, I was like, what's that? And he's like, oh, that's the lion. And I was like, what? And literally there's lions in the distance. I mean, they won't come because we have
Yeah, so you're
us.
safe at least, which is a real worry.
Yeah, no. Honestly, I felt way safer in the middle of Masai Mara than I have in most countries that I've lived in, which sounds crazy, but yeah, safety was never my concern. And then, yeah, we did a lot of game drives. My manager would take us and, saw lions, saw leopards, elephants, lots of zebras, every kind of animal. It was just such a unique experience for me. I did a hot air balloon ride, went to the local churches, local markets. It was just beautiful to see how dentistry and life in the middle of nowhere where there's literally nothing. There is nothing. And the sad part is if there's a procedure that as a general dentist, I don't feel comfortable doing, if I have to refer that patient out, they have to travel about 3 to 4 hours to a different city. The closest one was Narok, where there are dental offices, but it's so hard for them to get to another city. So literally, they want you to try and do everything. So I also felt like it was such a great experience to, learn so much more and just step out of your comfort zone and really go for it.
Yeah, I think that's really key, isn't it? A lot of the things that we do, you you've had a different experience to a lot of people, and probably a different experience that most people will ever have. Um, Most people are going to end up just working in 9 to 5 office, either wherever they live. They're not going to have gone across to all these different countries and kind of seen how it is somewhere else. So it's really nice to hear that you kind of went to all these places and seen not only dentistry from a different angle, because like you say, a lot of the dentistry is very similar, although in Dubai it's all aesthetics, and then you have funny quirks when you're going to somewhere like Kenya, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you're doing the same thing. I think what's really interesting is how you said that you actually felt as safe or as you ever had when you were in Kenya, and a lot of people probably wouldn't think that if you were to say, oh yeah, I went to Kenya and it was cool. I was just it was all good.
Thought I was gonna die. He couldn't come with me, and he's like, "Oh my God, you're gonna go alone, and there's gonna be no, Wi-Fi or signal and all of this." And I mean, there are cities in Kenya that it's not safe. In Nairobi, you have to be really careful. But I mean, they had somebody pick me up from the airport and put me up in a hotel, and then a driver who took me from the hotel on that 6-hour drive. And I actually had some family members join me as well. My husband couldn't, but it was just such a cool experience. And then once you're amongst the trees and the animals, there's no one coming for you. There's a fence protect. Good.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's that everyone just have that nice calm um way of living where you go out and every day it's within almost within nature, although you've got a bit of a compound, but you're not seeing the glare from. If I look out the window now at the horizon, I can see an orange glare over the horizon. um so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sure, it was a very special opportunity, and like I would go back there in a heartbeat. I also feel like maybe 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, actually, I don't think I'll retire that soon, but whenever I decide to retire, like that would be a really cool place to go and spend a
Mm,
couple of, um, and it's so rewarding because you know that you're the only dentist there for that 2 weeks or 1 month. You know that everyone's coming to you. There's only one clinic for the entire Maasai population.
Yeah.
And they treat you with so much respect. Over there, teachers and doctors, literally, they treat you like God, which to me was so strange. But I remember I was there for Easter, and then one of the dental assistants invited me to her church. And, they had their own ceremony for Easter where they did the prayers, they did a bit of dancing in church. They invited me, and then they wanted me to give a speech to their people. And I've never been given that much respect, but it was so humbling. Great experience, and I can't wait to go back. And I always encourage people, if you want to do any kind of volunteer experience, go for it, because this is the place to be.
Do you think that's the best compliment you've ever had, or maybe that's too far in a way?
It was too far. I mean, I don't think I should be speaking at a church. I was almost in tears when they asked me because I didn't even know what to say. I was so overwhelmed. But it's just their culture, because for them, they're like, wow, you left your family and you travel from another country to come and treat us when we're in pain.
Mm.
So there's so much respect that they give you. And of course it makes you, and it honestly really helped me reconnect with myself, with why I got into the profession in the first place. I was so far away from the aesthetic world when I was in Kenya.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful experience.
Yeah, it sounds like it's somewhere you could just reset almost in a way. And yeah, I think it's quite amusing you say that it was almost too far, because I have a real struggle when someone gives me a compliment. I'm just like, no, don't say that. No, I'm just like, thank you, I guess. I was like, it's one of those things that I think some people can take a compliment really well. I just haven't learned that skill yet. I just don't know. I don't know why. When someone says something good, I'm just like, they've got an angle. I'm thinking, oh dear, what do they want now?
Yeah, I mean, it does get awkward, but I think, yeah, you're right. It's a skill to take it and just say thank you.
Yeah. No, it's just something funny that I kind of thought of. But yeah, how did you develop that kind of mindset when you were there of, kind of getting back to the roots? Is it something that you were, is it something that you were mindful of, having been kind of overworked into the aesthetic side when you're in Dubai? Or is it something that you kind of realize now that you've come back through it all?
I mean, in Dubai, I've had great patience. It's not
Yeah, but I mean that whole sort of feeling of I want everything to look perfect and cosmetic and this and that can be very draining in a way, I guess.
It's being a dentist in an aesthetic practice is definitely a demanding job. Patients have high expectations, and you have to meet them. And in dental school, we've always been taught you should always underpromise and overdeliver rather than overpromise and underdeliver. But I felt like when I went to Kenya, there was no expectations. What you said was gospel, and if you said, "Hey, I want to try and save this tooth with a root canal," then they're like, "Okay." Yeah, they don't care. So I tried my best to do the best thing for the patient, of course.
Yeah.
That's always what we want to do as dentists, as professionals, as human beings. And I went to bed every night with just this feeling of so much satisfaction, contentment, joy. I hadn't felt like that in a while. And also it was cool. Like, I remember the first night that I was there was a little welcome hamper that the clinic had organized. There was a book which said, "How Not to Die in the Bush." And I was like, huh. So it was just cool. Like, I just felt like I stepped into someone else's shoes, and I was living their life for a couple of weeks. And it's just your priorities are so different when you're living that lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes we get so consumed in worldly things and materialistic things and, social media, this, that, like you forget a lot of the core values of just being, when people don't have access to all of these things, their lives are very simple. And when you see that, you learn so much from them. So for me, I felt like I just learned so much from the experience.
Yeah, I think you're kind of answering all the questions I had in my head of thinking, thinking what I'm going to ask her about Kenya. One of the things I was going to say is, what is it? Did you feel more contentment whilst you were there as a dentist, and in the rest of your kind of personal life, just going around and living there, as compared to, I don't know, maybe chasing, now you're doing your fellowship in peds? Is it a different sort of contentment you get, because obviously you're trying to up yourself in your career now, but over there was the peaceful lifestyle? Do you think that you would prefer one over the other? If I said, look, you've got to choose now, you pick one for the rest of your life and that's it.
I mean, that would be a really, I don't think I can, just drop everything and move to Masai Mara.
I'll
as
let you
much
take
as,
your husband, whichever way you go.
yeah, my husband actually says he would love to disconnect from the world. He's one of those who need a phone. He's constantly telling me, "Oh, I need to get rid of WhatsApp," and he doesn't use media. He's just one of those, he's a happy soul. If we had a good life, he would totally live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not sustainable right now. So I do think that I would go back. But that was more of a volunteer experience.
Yeah.
There's no salary for that job. So most people who come and do it will do it for 2 to 4 weeks. Luckily, they take care of most of your expenses. You do pay for your license because you do have to get the country's license. So for the Kenyan dental license, I think the only thing I had to pay for was $300 for my Kenyan license. And then, of course, my airfare.
Yeah.
But everything else they take care of. But as for what I would pick, I think it's pretty obvious that I picked this rather than living in any of the other countries that I've lived. I came back to the States. I knew I loved working with kids, and there was a lot of things that I didn't know I wanted to get better at, which is why I decided to go back to school. I am one of the oldest residents in my class. Most people will come fresh out of school. I practiced for 5 years or 6 years and then came back.
Do you think that gives you an edge over these guys, or do you think it's a hindrance in that you've gotten out of the educational system and you're no longer used to spending long nights in the library? Because I want to go back and do endo, but now the last time I was doing any kind of revision other than reading up on intermittent fasting and improv and a little bits and pieces that people are interested in on these podcasts is back in 2017. I don't know if I can go back to it. That's one of the things that really holds me back.
So I think everything comes to your mindset, and you just have to be adaptable. If you come and saying, hey, you know what, this is how I practice dentistry for the last 5 years, and I'm not really here to learn. I just want to get the few things and get my degree and go out. That is the worst. That's the recipe for disaster. So I think if you come in humble, if you come in ready to learn, there is so much room for growth. A lot of the things that I've been practicing, I feel like in dentistry also there's no black and white,
No, there's definitely not. There's so
much gray. No two dentists will practice the same way on the same patient. And I think the same dentist also might have a different treatment plan for that same patient on 2 different days. And there's nothing as right and wrong. Of course, there are some things that are definitely right and definitely wrong, but I feel like there's so many different ways to treat a patient. So I just keep a really open mind, and I think that's been key for me to learn. And I love my residents. I mean, some of them are a lot younger, but they've come straight out of school. They have so much to offer in terms of didactic that I might have forgotten over the last few years because I don't remember the last time I studied or took an exam. Whereas at the same time, they're very like, hey, actually, how would you do this? So we're constantly talking to each other, bouncing ideas off each other. So I feel like, it's actually a great mix to have a few people who've been practicing for a while, a few who are straight out of school. You're learning so much from each other, and our faculty or our attendings are completely aware of that, and they bring everyone up to the same speed very quickly. So I don't think it could be a hindrance. I feel like if you came up with an ego, if you came back with, that kind of know-it-all attitude, and I definitely don't think that's the way to go. But for me, it's been a really great experience. I always feel like I was a nerd. And even now my husband makes fun of me. He's like, I can't believe you're in school and excited about this quiz that you have. But it's nice to finally come back to that. We don't have so it's a 2-year residency in
Okay,
pediatrics.
yeah.
Um, we don't have exams throughout. Yeah, we have quizzes. Right now, actually, we don't have in-person lectures. Usually through the week, we would have lunch hour lectures, but because of COVID-19, we have to maintain social distancing as much as possible. Our classrooms are small because we're a small class of 10 residents. So we actually do online lectures now, but throughout the day we're just learning on the job because we're not in school. It's more of, you're working. We
Yeah.
are employees of a hospital and we're working all day. It's a very, very busy clinic. um, it's just learning on the job, and it's honestly an incredible experience. I went to a lot of programs here in the United States. I don't know how things work in the UK, but I externed at a few, I interviewed at a few. So I think I saw almost 17 different programs here, and
Wow.
they're so different from each other. Like literally, my style of practicing as a pediatric dentist will depend on the program that I graduate from.
There's
And
not even 7 in the UK, so that's crazy. Yeah, I think the last time I counted, because the last time I actually counted was when I was applying back in 2010. There were 13 dental schools, and if you're going into a master's program, you're probably looking at four. Sorry, off screen, four universities for each kind of program because they don't all do uh, every specialty. So your options are really limited. So for endo, for example, like I want to do, I think there's 5, maybe 6 different options for me to go to a school. So half of the schools just don't do an endo program. So you're looking at a really, really kind of competitive entry. But
that's
yeah, it's
wild.
crazy. But the
Yeah,
UK isn't set up for specialist practice.
programs for pediatric
Mm.
dentistry, but like it's still so competitive. Some programs have only 1 or 2 residents. I think my program is probably one of the biggest because we have 10 residents per year.
Yeah,
But even then, it's just so hard to get into. So I can't even imagine if there's only 4 or 5 programs
it's
in your
crazy. And
country.
generally, there's four applicants per year. I think it's four per year, so 4 in the cohort. So it's really competitive. But again, that comes down to a difference between maybe the States and the UK, where you have a lot of private specialists working in the community in the States, whereas the UK, if you're doing something like peds, you're going to be in a hospital environment. It's going to be a tertiary referral center. So you've got primary care, you've got secondary, which is stuff like special needs, which gets sent to another place in the community. And then tertiary is like the big stuff, the big cases get sent to the specialist in the hospital. So there's maybe not even a huge market for peds. I'm not sure. I'm not the right person to ask about pediatric dentistry in the UK, but it's interesting how differently they're set up.
Well, there's a lot of endo programs here, so maybe you should apply to the States
I tell you
here.
what, you worked in Chicago. If I ended up in Chicago, Mr. Gilbert, Mr. Brett Gilbert will be ecstatic. He's been nagging at me to come and learn from him. So yeah.
I think it's a pretty cool opportunity if you want to go back to school. I will guide you through it. I've done it for the last 2 years, going back to school. So I'd be very happy to bring you here.
Yeah, I have family in the States as well, so it wouldn't be the biggest change for me. It's just I'm not sure whether I can live in the States because I like the UK and the vibe in the UK. In the States, it was very much of a different sort of way of life. I don't know if you've been to England very much.
Been once for 4 hours, so I wouldn't say I've been.
No, you're not really. I think we have a very much slower way of life, and everything is much, much closer. I can walk to most of the places I want to go if I have to. And the other thing is, I have a season ticket for Manchester United, so that would be very difficult to fly in and out every week to come and watch football and still work over in the States. Uh, I did look at it
Probably
though.
the,
It very much tempted me. Kind of. I maybe watch that space. I don't know. Um, yeah,
is it a 2-year program in the UK?
2 or a 3 year program.
Yeah.
Very similar payment levels, I think. Uh, I think the highest is 47,000 a year for the program. Uh,
Wait, are you talking about tuition or are
tuition,
you talking about?
yeah, tuition.
So you wouldn't make a stipend?
I
or similar?
I don't know. There's two ways of doing it. The easiest and quickest way, and the way that I would prefer, is to go back into a university program where you pay your way. And the other
Yeah.
way is to go via the teaching route, which is about 8 or 9 years long. And I just, I think that seems a bit long for me. Yeah.
Well, here it depends a lot. So the programs are divided into university-based and hospital-based programs.
Yeah.
So usually, as part of a university-based program, you have to pay a tuition, and sometimes they can be really high. Like some of the schools in Boston, with your cost of living, it comes up to about $100,000 a year, which to me is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the ones that are hospital-based programs, kind of like the one I'm in, you get paid a stipend. You don't pay a tuition
Yeah.
because you're basically an employee and you're working all day, every day. And the stipends aren't bad. I mean, obviously, it's not the same as practicing as a general dentist, but it covers your cost of living. So I actually don't pay a tuition for my program. I get paid from my program to be working as a pediatric dentist, dental resident.
I would prefer. Obviously, you're gonna save a lot of money if you go via the hospital route, but do you get a better teaching via the university route? I don't know. Do you think that's a thing?
Biased, but I feel like both of them are 2 or 3 years. You have to, so the key difference would be in a university-based program, you're doing a little more research, which you have to publish.
Yeah.
But even in a hospital setting, we're still doing research.
Okay.
So right now, actually, I'm working with my mentor, and we're starting some research on just infection control, especially given the world atmosphere with COVID-19 in pediatric dentistry. So we're actually doing COVID-related research, which we're hoping to publish. Now, I don't have to, but I want to.
Yeah.
So for me, I just think that a university-based program you see lesser number of patients, it's more didactic, but here you still have to take the same didactic exam at the end, but you're seeing a way larger volume of patients, and you're constantly we're alert all the time because you've learned the job, and there's so many attendings. If you don't know something, ask them. They have the answers in your ear, and you're working simultaneously. So I just feel like for me, this is the best way to learn, rather than constantly reading about it for hours and getting less, chairside time. I want to get all the chairside.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you there, because I think one of the things, it's no secret, I struggled through dental school and I failed my finals and had to retake, which was weirdly the best thing ever happened, because I ended up doing Dentistry, I ended up doing podcasts, I ended up doing all these things as a direct result of that. If I passed first time, none of this is happening. But the thing that I struggled with was trying to make myself interested in a particular topic that I wasn't interested in enough that I could revise and learn it for an exam. Obviously, that wouldn't be an issue if I came back and did endo, because I've chosen to do it, and I like endo. But I like endo because I want to be good at the clinical endo. I don't want to be, the guy who's writing loads and loads of papers, although that is super, super important. I'm not knocking it in any way. But I'm interested in endo because I want to, be able to do MB2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s if they're existing, in a certain tooth, or, do root end closures and stuff like that.
Anxiety listening to this. Oh my God, I never want to do that again in my life.
Oh dear. Yeah, but it's just interesting to hear you say that. Let's just jump back to something you said there actually about the research you were doing. So how is that, you said it's maybe touching on related to COVID. What particular aspect are you looking at there?
So, I mean, we're in the very beginning stages where we're discussing. We haven't yet come up with a proposal, but what we're trying to see is there's right now, because of COVID, extra oral suction has become a thing. So we're trying to compare whether a high volume suction, we use isolite, or versus a saliva ejector versus a, extra oral high volume suction, or a combination of them. What's kind of the best way to reduce? That's what we're aiming to decrease as much as possible. I mean, there's so much error in dentistry, and that's why we were named as one of the highest risk professions at the beginning. I think New York Times released an article about that. So yeah, basically how to reduce the aerosol, and we're focusing on pediatric procedures. So basically a lot of stainless steel crowns. That's I would bread and butter, which reduces, and restorations and all that. So anything that reduces aerosol, we're going to figure out what is the best way to reduce it, and then hopefully publish a study based on that. There is a lot of existing data, but it's more on bacterial, infections. Right now, we're trying to do a more virus-related study. So we're still trying to figure out, because we can't figure out what's the best way to test everything. So we're in the very beginning pilot stages. We're just doing a lot of conversations right now. I still have another 22 months here in the program, so let me see what we can come up with.
That's interesting, because before Corona hit, for a completely different reason, I asked my principal dentist, the guy that I was working for, to get hold of some of the Sirona mirrors with with suction built in, not because of COVID, but because I was getting sick of holding the mirror down there and looking, and then spray getting on the mirror. So it's supposed to suction it right off the mirror, so you can always see. So that's really interesting that a lot of the things are kind of moving that way a little bit. I think it was by Sirona, that particular mirror.
Yeah.
I'd have to check. Yeah, it's funny that after that I'd done that. Unfortunately, I'd actually Corona stuff that happened, and plans changed. But interesting that something that I was thinking out of purely vanity reasons, because it would make my life slightly easier, might actually end up being something that's going to be really useful for potentially for infection control and stuff. So that'd be really, really interesting to find out what the results are when you bring them out. You definitely need to let me know when it comes out. Yeah. We had a comment from Bucena. In Madrid, my dental school is 20k per year more than in the UK. That's pretty crazy, because dental school for the UK students is 9,000 for an undergrad, and then the postgrads are a huge range of different prices.
9,000, are you talking about
Tuition.
Year?
Tuition per year.
Per year?
Yeah.
That's actually a lot less than what I think we pay in the US. The US dental schools debts are really, really high. So yeah, it's cool to see the comparison between the different countries.
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, when I started, it was 3,000 per year, so I really kind of got away with one there. And I know maybe 10 years before me it was 1,200, and then 10 years again before it was completely free. So things are moving in the completely wrong direction over here for sure. But it's crazy, yeah.
I mean, over here, it varies based on the state, based on whether it's a private school or not. But I would say it's $60,000 to $100,000 a year, which is ridiculous. Wow. Yeah. So I mean, most students, when they graduate as dentists, they already have loans of between $250,000 to $400,000. So you're paying off your debt for a very long time, which is why I'm so grateful that I got into a program which is not tuition based, it's stipend based. At the end of it, I'll probably be at the same, zero. I can make anything I used up everything I made, but at least I'm not going to be in crazy debt.
Yeah, that's really important, because you'll get to the point where if you have children are expensive, and then obviously if they end up going to college or university somewhere, it just it's a never-ending loop, isn't it? So it'd be nice for you to not have that double whammy with the secondary bit of debt.
I feel like with my friends here in the United States, I feel like kids live with their parents until they're about 18, and then they're on their own. I mean, a lot of them will still get help from their parents. It just depends. But most of my friends took loans to go to dental school, took loans to go to college, and then they're paying it off for the next 20 or 30 years that they're practicing as general dentists. That's very common. In our Indian culture, we, of course,
we don't live.
Yeah. We literally live our entire lives to pay for the kids' weddings and education and all of that. So, I think it just depends on the culture and the country that you're in.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for the Indian or South Asian culture even, where, for example, I'm still living at home, and I'm been working for a few years now, And if you look at the number of young people who are in debt, young people who can't get, on the housing ladder. I don't know if it's as difficult in the States as in the UK, but it's something like, I think it's the average price of a house, or the deposit on a house, is like 12 years worth of income or saving, whereas it used to be like 2 years and you could get on the housing ladder, which is crazy. So a lot of people do saying, "Oh, I've got to get out of the house and not live at home," but you're renting, and that's your potential deposit money going down the drain. So uh, it's interesting that there's such a big difference between the two cultures. Maybe the Western culture, where you strong and independent children, and the Indian culture, where we're going to stick around for as long as we can and save as much money as we can, and then move out if we get married, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes not even then.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's advantages and disadvantages to both. Like,
Yeah.
I do feel grateful that I was able to live with my parents as long as I could. And then, of course, I haven't actually lived at home for a long time because I went to schools in different countries. But yeah, I still live with family, with, traditional values. I'm very grateful for that. And I feel like my parents, they actually just used to live in the UK until I was born. They practiced and they're both physicians, and they got their degrees all in the UK, and then they moved to India for a bit, and now they're in Dubai as well. But I feel like because they've traveled around a lot, they're a lot less orthodox than they would have been.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because me and my friends, we always say, oh, if we were all still back home, we wouldn't be friends, because some of us are I'm half Pakistani, half Indian, and then there's my friends who are Hindu, and some are Sikh, and some who are from all over these places. And you think, actually, if we stayed back where we were, we'd hate each other. It's really weird. And then when you come to the West, it's like, oh, we'll band together, we're all friends.
Yeah.
So it shows it's a product of the environment and things, as opposed to anything fundamental.
My and I so I'm Hindu, he's Sikh, but yeah, I mean, I feel like you just want to, if you're compatible with people, whether friends or in a life partner, at the end of the day, that's really all that matters.
Yeah, yeah. At risk of getting too political there, I think. um, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the improv, which you mentioned way back at the beginning. Because you spoke a little bit about this when we had our little planning meeting, and I went last night and I did a YouTube tutorial on improv. Now, don't ask me to do anything, because I only watched it. I didn't practice it at all or anything like that. Um, but I was looking at it thinking, actually, well, this is amazing. It could be perfect for someone like me, who is literally talking to people almost for a living now, because I'm out of a dental job until I get one again, basically, that I want to go for. So yeah, it's one of those things that I looked at and go, oh, this could be fun, and could really up the quality of what I'm doing, and I can see how it could impact upon patient care and patient rapport when you speak to them in the surgery.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched last week's episode, or not even last week's episode, Monday's episode with who do we have? We had Ben, who does all the reels, the
Yeah.
Instagram reels. It kind of almost follows on from the topic we were talking about, which was the filler words. People saying and like and stuff too much.
Yes.
And it's that same.
So
I didn't even plan this, but you've taken it to the next level this week with the improv.
yeah, I'm guilty of that. But with improv, I think what we're taught is, so the concept is yes and. I feel like
Yeah, that's
we stopped listening to people, and that's what improv teaches you. Whatever someone says to you, don't always block it. Don't block their idea. Just accept it and build off that, which is what yes and is. So if someone says to me, "Oh, that's a beautiful peacock on your head," I know there's not a peacock on my head, but I'm like, I know, and then we kind of build off that scene. So it's always, or if I had just said, "What do you mean? There's nothing on my head." The scene just breaks. That's it. It's gone. So you whatever that your ensemble's idea is, you always accept it. You always heighten it. You build off it. Improv doesn't necessarily have to be funny. A lot of people think that it's comedy has to be funny. We actually have serious scenes in improv too. We have, tear-jerking scenes in improv too. It also varies a lot based on your audience because you can kind of sense the vibe in the audience. It depends on what suggestions you're getting from the audience. So I do feel like, no two nights will be the same. It literally depends on how you're feeling that day, what energy you're feeling, how you're vibing with your, with your ensemble, what the energy in the room is like. But I think it's a great way to kind of break out of your shell, be comfortable being yourself, and also be comfortable playing the role of someone completely different. So yeah, I just thought it was a great way for me to just not overthink things, be more conversational. And I feel like in any of the healthcare professions, it's so important because you meet a patient for the first time, there's barely any time for an icebreaker, and then you're treating the patient. And in that much time, that patient has to gain some trust in you, some confidence in you. So I do think that it really helps with our profession. I also feel like, as a dentist, patients are never going to be able to judge your skill levels, like whether you did it.
No, they haven't got a clue. They haven't got a clue.
A perfect filling? Did you do the perfect crown? They're not going to know. They're trusting you based on your people skills, which is why I felt like that really heightened my, just my conversations and my ability to make treatment plans for my patients. And I could see how differently they were trusting me. And, as you're coming from a genuine place, which I always try to do with my patients, I always try to think of, okay, if this was my mom, what would I do? If this was my sister, what would I do? As long as you're coming from a genuine place, I feel like somewhere along there was no rule book of how it impacted my life professionally, but it definitely did. So when you say, oh, I might be interested, I highly encourage you to go for it because it's a lot of public speaking that you're doing. So I feel like it's good for anyone.
System means that you have to maybe see 30 patients in a day. Sometimes you have 2 or 3, you're not going to have 10-15 minutes just to chat to the patient. You would have 10-15 minutes whole consultation and tell them to book in and consent them, so you're not having that time to build a rapport with them. So I can imagine just having that 10 out of 10 skill, if you were really skilled up in something, where you're going to be able to connect with the patient on a much more personable level, is going to make less friction to acceptance of plans, less friction when it comes to if something goes wrong, which it does. And this is the problem, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm paying now, that means it's not going to go wrong, and it's all going to be fine. But healthcare is, every time we pick up a drill, we're spinning the coin in a way sometimes, because you don't know not that you don't know what's going to happen. You could easily ledge, you could perforate, you could do all sorts of things that you weren't expecting, and that's maybe one of the difficulties we have, when we don't have as much time to explain things through. So yeah, it definitely would be interesting. I don't know whether I'll go to like an actual class or I'll just go with my usual technique of watch YouTube videos until it sticks.
I mean, right now it's not happening, but when things start going back to normal, that whole atmosphere, there's like a thrill. I don't know. There's like, I feel like I can see myself stepping out of my body and then just taking on different. It's the adrenaline rush that you feel on stage you can't replicate it I don't think you can replicate it by watching YouTube videos. So I really hope that things opens up, things go back to normal. I hope you're able to try with a drop-in class. That's what I did first. Because that's so weird. How am I going to go in and just, suddenly act like I'm a butterfly? They can give you anything. You could be a dog in a scene, literally. You could be a grandmother in a scene. You could even change genders. I could be an old man in a scene. So definitely as an adult, I was like, that's really awkward. Like, I can't do that. So I did a drop-in class, and then I realized how fun it was. And you know what? You just need to leave everything behind, leave all your baggage behind, and just come in and take on, just be someone else for that time that you're on stage. So
Yeah, how did you, I didn't ask you this yet. How did you actually get into it? What was the, oh, I'm going to do improv now. What was that moment, or was it just a random, oh, I'll just try this?
it was not random. It's actually really weird how I got into it. So my husband and I moved to Chicago together, and he was looking for a job at that time, and he was always kind of intrigued by improv, and he was like, "Wow, I'm literally in Chicago, where the second city is, so why don't I sign up?"
Mm.
So he signed up, and he paid for the classes. Meanwhile, I had just started my first job as a general dentist, so I couldn't, care less about improv at that point.
Yeah.
And then things turned around for him, and he had a opportunity in Dubai, and literally moved overnight to Dubai for his job, and he couldn't get the refund. So then I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll try. This is really how I signed up. And then I got obsessed with it, and I was like, oh my god, like the class of the second city, 2 hours a week, which I could do. So I did it usually from 7 to 10 p.m. on a weekday, like post work. I made the best of friends, people with who I would have probably never been friends with had I not met them at improv, because everyone there
Yeah.
is weird in their own cool way. But yeah, I met some incredible human beings. Just learned to loosen up. And my husband started taking, once we moved to Dubai, we found like an improv theater in Dubai. So both of us took classes together in Dubai as well. I was really hoping to start up in Italy, but right now things are closed, and they do offer some online improv sessions, but I just don't think that's going to do it for me. So I'm just waiting for things to go back to normal.
It won't be the same. It'll be completely different to having experienced something in, in its fullest. I suppose it's the same. I'm going to go back to my football. Watching on TV, I cannot get into it as much as going and sitting in the stadium, with friends. Well, there's two old ladies who sit either side of me, and that's when I see the. Um, I think they're set in their 70s or 80s, and they're there every week, and it's like my football grandmas or something. It's a different situation, to whether you're watching at home. Um, yeah. So I can imagine, yeah, it'd be very difficult to get into it in an
Yeah.
online sort of way. I don't know how you do that. Some sort of weird Zoom session. I don't know.
Yeah. I struggle with this whole online thing in general. We're doing great today, but yeah, just doing classes, doing improv, I just feel like I don't know if it's going to do it. I've been doing a lot of dancing classes online, weirdly enough. I'm kind of
How does
obsessed.
that work?
So I've been doing Bollywood dancing since I was a little girl.
Mm,
When I was a teenager, I started actually choreographing for Indian weddings. It was something that I really enjoyed. And then kind of went into dental school, and as part of the dance team. Then I kind of just got distance from dancing because life happened, jobs happened, and I stopped dancing for a really long time. And then during quarantine, um, there is some phenomenal dancers that I follow on Instagram. They're all based in LA, and I kept thinking to myself, I'm in Dubai, like I'm never going to be able to do this. Like maybe if I ever travel to California sometime, I'll try and do a class. And then because of quarantine, they had to shut down all their classes. So they started doing online classes. So I was
yeah.
like, okay, well, I'm sitting here in Dubai, but maybe I could try. So literally, it's kind of like how we're talking right now, but I'll be at the back, like learning the steps. And they teach it step by step with music. So I started doing the one that I really love. They're called B Funk on Instagram. So B is either Bhangra or Bollywood, and funk is basically it's Bollywood with a funk with a twist, or Bhangra with a twist.
Right.
There are these two girls. I'm obsessed with them. I do a lot of their choreography, and it's just for me. Honestly, it makes me happy. It's a great workout too, but I still hope that I can do in-person classes. There's actually a lot close by in Philadelphia and New York, but right now everyone's doing it online. But as soon as I get an opportunity, that's definitely something I want to do in person. But until then, like probably this evening, I was thinking of learning a choreography after we're done talking. And yeah, so it's more for myself, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's really good to have a couple of things that you're really, really obsessed by. I mean, if you have that, then you've always got something once you leave work, because this is one of the other things that I talk about fairly regularly on the podcast. Once you leave work, you need something there that's going to give you some sort of satisfaction that you can really get into, because if you're all teeth and no play, then you don't have that balanced life. And I think that's really, really important. Something that I'm trying to kind of beat the drum for, is to have a nice balanced lifestyle, so that once everyone goes to work, then they're in a good mental place, less mistakes get made, less issues with patients, and everyone's just happier, and things are going to go much better. For me, I kind of have that similar. I can hear it in your voice. We were talking. You can hear the very strong kind of like she really wants to learn this routine after we finish today. So that passion for whatever's going on. For me, I mean, it's the photography. It's doing things like podcasts, and when I'm not injured, going to the gym and doing things like that. So it's really important to have these, and everyone's got a different way of getting that release. I think that's so important.
And it's like, your professional life is one thing, and I am, of course, passionate about pediatric dentistry, which is why I'm going back to school now. But you need to like zone out and tune out and do something that just makes you happy, that you're not doing for the money, you're not doing for it, you're just doing it for yourself. Sometimes you need my me time, and a lot of the time it's just I started. I've been trying different things. My husband's a triathlete, so I got into training for half marathons. I did a few over the last couple of years, and now I'm hoping to do a full, just something that keeps me, motivated to do something other than what I'm doing for a living. So for me, that's been either improv or Bollywood dancing, or training for half marathons, just anything that keeps you going.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I don't know if you know the girl. There's a girl who is also a dentist. She does a lot of choreography and dancing. Anisha Cooler.
Yeah, I follow her as well. Yeah,
Yeah, I
great.
featured her a long time ago. And yeah, she does some cool stuff, and she does it on basketball. Before the games, I think. And is it NFL or basketball? I can never remember which one it is.
No, it was for basketball. She's amazing. I follow her as well. She's actually also a resident. I think she's doing ortho.
Ortho. I'm pretty, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in California. But yeah, no, I used to follow her because she did a lot of B funk as well. That's the two girls in LA that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
I did
yeah,
wonder whether you two are connected already over this, because I think that's one of the really cool things about the whole Instagram thing, is that, okay, yeah, you're both dentists, but you've also got a secondary thing, which is the
yeah,
Bollywood or dancing, and then there might be something else as well.
yeah. She's a professional. I do it more like for myself.
Yeah.
But I do actually. I reached out to her once because I was like, if I'm ever in LA, I'd love to do one of her classes because she's amazing, and I'm inspired by her that she's doing her residency and yet like doing all this on the side, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, maybe we'll bring her on the podcast next time, and you can be the third. We can be the third guest.
Yeah,
That'd be cool. Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of this whole podcast. I mean, we've had guys on who we did the creators podcast, which was loosely about content creation. There's a guy who's a YouTuber, a couple of YouTubers, and then there's another guy, Cami, who's one of my close friends, who does like really cool photographs. So it was just like a nice chat, and all these guys have got something in common. It was just simple, and it went really well. And you got new friends or new people you can go and see if you go out somewhere, and I think that's one of the really cool things about the whole thing. We were going to talk about, I think, going back to the different, licensing, US, Kenya. You did a stint in India as well, in some.
I went to dental school initially in South India, so that's what.
Right.
Yeah.
What was so you qualified in the States, obviously, as an undergrad.
Yeah.
How difficult was it for you to move to the UAE, because that was your first move, wasn't it?
So moving to the licensing part is actually probably my least favorite part of moving countries, because it just becomes so hectic and stressful. So moving to UAE actually was a little easier for me, given that I had a US license, because UAE has their own set of exams. Dubai is divided into two zones. One is called Dubai Health Authority, one is called Dubai Healthcare City. So they have two different dental licenses. For one of them, if you have a US license, you can just transfer it and make the payment and get that dental license to practice.
Okay.
For the other one, you have to actually take the licensing exam. Now, I took the licensing exam anyway because there are zones that accept this license and other zones in Dubai that accept another license. So I just wanted to keep all my options open. So I took the exam anyway. But I feel like in order, from the time that I started thinking about it to me actually getting my license was almost a year-long process. So I started it way before I moved. Because in Dubai, you have to take the exam. After you've taken the exam, they do something called primary source verification.
Yeah, of
So
your degree.
yeah, anything that's on your CV, whether it's your job experience, your degrees, they will contact all of those places and get it verified. And sometimes that takes a while. Like, in India, for example, or in the US, for example, not everyone's going to respond right away and confirm that, okay, Nidhi was here from so and so,
Yeah.
this year. So that took longer than I would have liked to. And then finding a job was not easy either. I feel like right now the market is also struggling all over the world. I think if you have a job, you're blessed. It's not a good space and time right now to find a new job as a dentist.
Yeah, not everyone's as much of an idiot as they were in during the pandemic.
Find something way better well behind us.
Yeah, no, I'm very lucky though because I live at home, so we've I'm not paying rent and all those kinds of horrible things. So, it otherwise I probably wouldn't have taken such a step. But with everything the way it was, I think it was the right thing to do. We'd done a lot of stuff to keep grandma safe and other people in the house. So yeah, that's one of those things. But yeah, I think because that's something that we got asked. I get asked quite a lot is how can I move to certain countries and how can I move here, how can I move there? Are you aware of countries or other places where if you were wanting to move to the UAE, you would struggle to get in? Or is it the same for everyone? You just got to take the exam and then see, and then it's done?
The exam, okay, if I had moved straight from India to UAE, it would be the same exam. Unfortunately, it's so saturated right now that, as horrible as it sounds, based on which country you've gotten your education from or how advanced a level of education is basically going to decide whether you get a job or not. So I was fortunate to have that. In Dubai, they call it the Western qualification. So I was fortunate to have an American degree, which obviously made it definitely easier for me to move to Dubai. But it would have been very hard as a general dentist with a BDS from India to move right away. I think if you're a specialist from India, the opportunities are actually much better. Yeah, so I have people reach out to me as well, and I always tell them that it's not going to be a piece of cake, and now it's even going to be harder. So maybe if you have a job in the country that you're in, just keep at it for a little while till the world kind of restabilizes. No one really knows where anything is headed right now. People it's absolutely nuts to move to another country in July in the middle of a pandemic to America, but the numbers are actually...
Which you did, yeah.
But the thing is, for me, I've been working in it for 2 years, so it was not like I just packed my bags and moved. If I lost this opportunity, 2 years of my hard work would have gone down the drain, and then would I have had...
You had something lined up. That's maybe the difference.
Yeah. So I mean, it was crazy. I sometimes, question a lot of the things I've done, but I know that it's towards a bigger goal, and I have to keep reminding myself of that. And yeah, it helps that my family was supportive.
Yeah, sure.
They think I was crazy, but at the same time, they got it. I mean, it sucks. Now travel is really difficult. I don't know when I can go back and see my parents again. But I'm hoping that things start stabilizing and either one of us can travel and, meet at some point.
Yeah, I've had a couple of friends who've actually gone to Dubai recently, but I don't know whether that is going to be possible from you in the States, because obviously your cases are very, well, depending on where you are, they're quite high.
I think Dubai is okay with me entering. That's not an issue, because the moment you land, they do the PCR testing, because my husband went back and forth. So that's fine. They're accepting tourists right now in Dubai. My problem is when I come back, I need a quarantine. My hospital requires me to quarantine for 14 days. I don't have leave to, take 10 days off and then quarantine for 14 days. I just don't have that option right now. I started my program 3 weeks late because of all the craziness. I literally moved overnight because I didn't know if I was going to be able to move. So I I'm already short on leave, which is why that would be harder for me to do.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes more sense. What I think that's an interesting segue actually into the precautions around COVID. I don't want to go too much into it. Where did you feel that there were more on top of things? Because you started off in the UAE and then you're now in the States, so you've got two completely different kind of parts of the world.
I mean, I think Dubai is so small, and then there's the US, which is
Huge, yeah.
the comparison is hard. Dubai, I think, did a really good job. The thing is, in Dubai, when there's a rule, everyone follows it. You know,
Mm,
are not silly enough to break rules because the fines are very heavy and the punishment is very severe or whatever it is. So I feel like the moment we got informed that there's a lockdown or okay, you have to wear a mask to do this, everyone followed, and I think that was wonderful, which is why we kept our numbers really low. Um, I came here. Things are definitely not the same, but my hospital does an incredible job. I mean, the layers of PPE that we're wearing, the precautions we're taking. So I feel like I can speak for my hospital, and I think they do a phenomenal job. For the rest
brilliant.
of America, I think it depends on the states that you're in. There's so much other. There was so much other stuff going on. There was protests. There's fires. I mean, priorities have been different based on the states, so it's kind of hard to say, oh, you're not doing a good job or you're doing
Not
a great
difficult to
job.
give a blanket answer, yeah.
Yeah. So while I think Dubai did a really great job, because even now in Dubai, the moment you land, they're going to make you do the PCR testing, and the results come within hours. Because when my husband went back, I think he got his result within 10 hours. Until you get your result, you have to be quarantined at home. The moment you get the test, if it's negative, then you can go around. If it's positive, then you have to finish the quarantine for 14 days.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing from people who've gone there, which was really interesting. Because in the UK, we've still got, you can waltz in and out of as many airports as you want, and they just let you through, and no one really cares, and who's policing people quarantining and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just interesting to hear how they're doing it in the UAE, because you've actually had a bit more hands-on experience maybe of the situation. Yeah, it's really interesting. And then Kenya, you had to just pay the license fee, is that right, to get in?
That it was easiest to do it. And also because I went through this organization, which is called the Masai Dental Clinic. They did all the paperwork for me. Of course, I had to send all my my diplomas and my current license and all of that. They did all the paperwork for me, but yeah, it was more of I think it took 4 to 6 weeks to get my license. I paid the $300, and it was pretty easy to do.
Not too bad. So you reckon of the so you've kind of done 3 licensing examinations. Which was the most difficult of the 3?
I've done 4 because I also did the one in India.
Oh, you did the one in India as well? Oh, I didn't realize you finished the Indian degree.
Yeah, I went to dental school and I had a license active for a year, but then I moved to the US right after. But I think getting a license to practice in the US is probably the hardest because you can't just transfer. I had a BDS from India, but I had to go to school again to do a 2-year program to convert my Indian BDS into an American BDS.
Yeah, that is the advanced standing program.
Exactly. So I did
Where did you do that?
Colorado.
Colorado, cool.
Yeah. A lot of people, will be like, oh, you had to go back to school and just repeat it. I don't actually think of it that way at all. I feel like I learned so much in those 2 years that I was in Colorado. I feel like a lot of what I am today as a dentist, I kind of add to that experience that I had as an international dentist or dental student in Denver. My program was amazing, learned so much. And now I'm continuing to learn as a resident now in Philadelphia.
Yeah, because actually we're talking to Masuma Rivsi, who she's doing the advanced standing program at UCLA. We're talking to her. I think it's next week. It might be next Saturday. So yeah, if anyone's watching this back and wants to find out more about the advanced standing program, getting into the United States and all that sort of stuff, next week is the place you want to be for that. Sorry, I just got a little shout out there to next week's.
No, it's not easy. So if anyone can give you those tips, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's still we did a video with her last year. I did a video with, I don't know why I keep on using the royal we actually, because it wasn't a we, it was I did a video with her. I don't know. That's something weird in my head. Yeah, I did a video with her last year, and that's still the video that's had the most views, most response to, and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure she's still getting like DMs, every other week about how to do stuff. So I think we're just gonna clear some bits and pieces up, hopefully, and have a nice broad talk similar to what we're doing today.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah.
Any of your viewers ever have questions about the same thing about how to move here with a dentist license from anywhere else in the world,
Yeah.
or how to apply to residency as an international dentist, yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to give you all the answers that I can.
I might
Because
take you up on that offer, the residency for sure, if I
you
end up deciding to move to the States with Indo.
with the international program as well as residency, so I'm happy to help in any way.
Yeah, for sure. That would be really, really brilliant. So guys, if you do want to find out a bit more, Nidhi's there for you. You're also doing, and this is something that I'm interested in but haven't properly done, is the intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
I'm I'm very much into the gym. At the moment, I'm trying to cut my carbs as much as possible. So if I look a little bit, worse for wear, or seem a little bit grumpy today, it's because my carb intake. I've not had no carbs, but I'm down to like, I had a couple of small potatoes, very small potatoes with a huge chicken leg, and some salad, and that's about that's been like one sort of, in the palm of your hand is the amount that I've been having per day. Uh, I'm still struggling with sugars in teas. I'm still struggling with that. So that's my big
Black
uh,
coffee.
black coffee. Yeah, I'm still not there with black coffee. I've got a nice coffee machine. We have these Pendo beans, and they've got a very chocolatey taste. When you smell the tamp after it's finished, got like an aroma of chocolate. It's beautiful, but I'm still not at that point where I can drink it black. I'm still, putting the milk up and stuff. But yeah, that's my struggle, and I don't know why. I need to find a better honey, which is a little bit sweeter, that satisfies the sweet taste. Because what I would do is I would put honey in my tea, which is great and healthy. Anything natural I'm taking is free. But I've not found one. I've not found one that I'm quite happy with.
But no, I don't think you should go cold turkey. I started it
No.
2 years ago. So I actually reached a point in my life where I was feeling extremely unhealthy. I was probably about, I want to say almost 15 to 20 pounds heavier than I am right now. I just didn't like the way I looked. I didn't feel good. I felt bloated. And, you feel lethargic. And I think it has a huge impact on you mentally as well. So then I found this group called the Sweaty Ninjas on Instagram, and I started doing their program. But I mean, it was a combination of workouts and healthy eating. But they kind of kickstarted my metabolism with the intermittent fasting, and we didn't start extremely. Literally, I started with 12 hours of fasting, 12 hours of eating, and then 13, 14, 15, and 16. But so don't do anything extreme. But
I like doing
now it's
that though. I like going from being very, very unhealthy to going, okay, now I'm going to play football 6 times a week. And
painful because at some point you're like, all right, I'm done. I need to, you're just gonna sit with a cup of ice cream because I feel like I've done that. I've done those extreme diets and then hated myself for it, and then just had a bad day, and I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna eat today. But now I made it my lifestyle, and I do the intermittent 16 hours fast, 8 hours of eating pretty much all the time, and I'm able to eat a lot of things that I feel like my body wouldn't have responded well to before, but just the timing of eating it is different. And when I did it strictly, of course, I had cut out all artificial sugars or added sugars. I would have sugars in the form of fruit, but that was pretty much it. And that was when I was introduced to black coffee. So I brought up in an Indian home, instant coffee with milk and sugar. That was my life. I didn't even know what like an Americano or black coffee was until I started this program. And for me, waking up in the morning and having first thing that goes into my belly would be coffee and breakfast. I've always, grown up believing that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Of course, when I lived at home with my parents, it was always hot breakfast, hot Indian breakfast. This is the days. And then when I was in dental school or working, it would be a protein bar And it was very hard for me to give up that, which is why I didn't do it extreme kind of switch from like, okay, back to 16 hours, but I did it gradually with these trained people who formed like a full program for me. And now I actually find it really easy. Like it's not hard at all for me. I usually eat, my lunch around 12:31 when I get my break as a resident. And then I finished my dinner by 7:38, and then I'm just fasting, and it's really not hard. During the fasting hours, you can have black coffee or green tea and as much water as you want.
Yeah.
But it's actually become my lifestyle now, and it really helps to maintain the weight that I lost, and also, I've been working out to also gain muscle and all of that. So I think it's once you get to it.
That's interesting you say that. I think it was David Goggins, and I was watching his chat with Joe Rogan on his podcast, and he was saying, well, actually, if I'm on a flight now and he does like 16 or 18 hours a day in his fast, he was saying if I don't like the look or the smell of the food, I just leave it, because I'm used to this. I can do this now. I can go a bit longer than anyone else can without food, and I'll wait for a nice, good, healthy meal, because these things are packed full of salt, and to make it taste up there, because it's so high in the altitude, they triple up the salt, don't they, to make you actually taste something. Otherwise, you're just going to be eating this bland kind of hot mush. So that was really interesting. But what is there that you said is actually now you don't feel it, and that's what everyone who gets into one of these things is, instead of thinking about it as this is the diet now, you just think, well, this is how I live my life now. It's the lifestyle change, not a crash diet or anything like that. Can I ask though, I don't know if this is getting too deep or anything like that, but what got you to the point where you thought, I need to start something like this, or I need to, were you aware of yourself just feeling run down? Was it, you didn't like the way you maybe looked? And I know you said you felt a little bit bloated, because, I kind of maybe emphasize with that bit, because, lactose intolerant being myself, if I have any milk, then you can instantly feel that puffiness and funny feeling within the body. So was it something along those lines, or was it because yeah,
it actually goes back, because I was actually pretty obese growing up as a child. And so my mom actually took me to a nutritionist when I was in like 6th grade. I started working out. So I felt like I always struggled with weight. It was always like going up and down, up and down. And it was always, it was hard to be healthy. I was always overweight or obese.
right.
And then like when I went to dental school, like back then I'd actually done a lot of like different programs, different diets, different workout plans. As a child growing up, it has an impact on you for sure. My parents really made an effort to make sure that, able to help me lose weight when I was growing up. My brother was a huge, pushing factor in helping me eat healthy. But then I went to dental school, and every time I had exams, I would stress eat and bloat up. So I would gain 5 kilos every time there was an exam, and that was very normal for me. And then I would do a weird crash diet when I went home and take, I found some, there was a Cambridge diet, which sent you like bars and like shakes to eat. And I would do all these extreme things and then lose someone, then be stressed about something. And I would just eat nonstop. I always tell my mom, I feel like I have a bottomless stomach, and like no matter what I eat, it like doesn't satiate my appetite. So I feel like I struggled growing up. Then I met my husband, and we were both actually a lot heavier, both probably 15, 20 pounds heavier when we first met. And now he does Ironman, and he's way fitter. And I feel like we kind of influenced each other positively. But there was just a lot of, body dysmorphia, just feeling like I don't like the way I look, constantly not enjoying my food. If I eat something, constantly thinking about, okay, now I need to exercise and lose it. So I just wasn't. And then I reached a point that I gained a lot of weight after I got married, and just didn't feel good about myself, and just looked at myself one day in the mirror. And I still remember I had just got married, and I went to, this is weird, but I went to the lady to get my nails done, and she was like, oh, are you pregnant? And I was just like, that was like the biggest wake up call for me. And I was like,
I imagine if someone asks a girl that and they're not pregnant, this is what the next thing you see is.
I was just like, this is bad. So that's when I reached out to this group. I'd been following them on Instagram for a while. And I actually really liked the way they developed their plans. It was nothing extreme. It was a lot of wholesome, healthy food.
Yeah.
And it was no crash diet. You still get to eat everything that you want, but just, the portions were different, the timing of eating. And that's when they introduced me to intermittent fasting, which I'd never heard of before. And it's been really easy to kind of maintain it. I mean, yeah, I have bad months where, okay, I go on vacation and, binge eat and cheat.
That's
But then
cool.
I
That's all good.
yeah, I mean, that's just life. But it's a lot easier now to get back on track because of the intermittent fasting. So that's how it works for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have this struggle of body image and a bad relationship with food. I mean, I've just spoken about sugars in tea. I was never this bad previously. I don't know whether lockdown has done this to me, or maybe when I've started working, maybe that's done it to me. I can't pinpoint that moment, but I'm aware of it now, going, oh god, I'm putting way too much in. And it doesn't help that I really like having huge mugs. This thing is as big as my face. So I mean, I initially bought it as a prop for the podcast, so maybe I'll put it like in the background somewhere. But yeah, it's one of those things that everyone has, that difficult. There's something there in everyone, whether or not you are someone who is absolutely smashing the gym, has got perfect diet. Even that person, because I've been there at that point as well, even that person can have that little thing in the back of the head, goes, oh, I'm just not going to go to the gym today. I'm just going to lie around and, oh, that that cake in the fridge that my roommate's got, that looks pretty good. Or so I think it's there in everyone. So it's interesting to hear all the different ways that people are getting above and beyond it, and getting themselves somewhere that they feel happy, and aren't looking at themselves going, oh god, who's that in the mirror, and wishing it was someone else.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And like, that's why I always literally, even in my residency, I'm always talking to all my co-residents who they'll come to me and we'll be talking about like weight loss. And then I start my intermittent fasting topic and they think I'm getting paid for it or something. I'm like, no, but I swear it makes all the difference. Yeah, so
It's like being a vegan, you have to tell someone, right?
yeah, but I mean, I'll tell you that it really works and you should try it.
Do I have to sign up somewhere? Is there a link?
I signed up, so I mean, I can give you the information, but I don't even think like if you just want to try it on your own, there's so many guides, so many apps that help you with fasting. Just give it a try. That's how our bodies were meant to
Yeah.
function.
No, I mean, we do fasting 30 days in Ramadan, so I know that the fasting, you realize when you do something like that, how little you actually need to eat to actually, function through the day. And a lot of the time, especially during lockdown, because we were in lockdown during fasting this year, and you're sat there and there's nothing to do, because you can go for a walk, but or you can you can't go to work, you can't go see friends, you can't go do this, that, and the other. So then you're sat there in the house, and it went from that switch where it was not fasting to then it was fasting, and you realize actually I wasn't hungry, I was bored, and I was just thinking, oh, that'll be that's something. I'll get a little bit of food, endorphins. Endorphins you get with food? I think it's endorphins. I may be wrong. You get that little chemical buzz when you have the food, and then you think, okay, right, I need to have that again now. So I need something different now, though. So I'm going to make something different and eat that, and then the whole day can go by, and you've had 4, 5, or 6 meals because you're just bored. And I wonder whether that is a lot of the problem.
I mean, for sure. I feel like when I'm busy, I'm a lot less hungry. So for sure, quarantine was everyone, I feel like, including me, gained weight because then you were cooking a lot, you were bored a lot, you were at home a lot. So the next thing to do is, okay, what can I eat when you're bored? And so, yeah.
It's either eating or watching Netflix. I've officially completed Netflix. I'm expecting a certificate in the post. So stay tuned for that, guys. That'll be an Instagram post if I get that certificate. Yeah, I'm fully running out of things to watch. I'm completely out. What's interesting though, you didn't change your diet at all, as in the actual things you're eating, or did you?
Well, when I was trying to lose weight, yes, I cut down a lot of any artificial sugar, any added sugar, completely out of my diet. And now I'm maintaining it. Yeah, like sometimes somebody brings a cookie to work or brownies or someone's birthday. Yeah, I'll eat that.
Yeah.
But then I'll try and compensate. Like I'll be really good the next day. So it's not like I just I'm on a crash diet all the time or anything. I eat pretty much everything, but if I have carbs, it's more for lunch. I'll always have rice and vegetables and some sort of like protein.
Yeah.
Dinners, I'll try and stay away from carbs, but I'll eat more like proteins and salads and things like that. But I cheat every once in a while, and
Yeah.
so I can eat almost anything I want. Just the timing is different.
But you're not like, there's not something that you go every day. You're going, I wish I could have a burger or something like that. There's nothing where you're actively denying a huge, like, I don't know, feeling to have some sort of food or craving to have some sort of food. It seems like you're not having that sort of an issue.
Again, if you're doing intermittent fasting to lose weight, yeah, you have to be strict, right? Once you kind of reach your goal, once you want to maintain it, then I think you've also, everyone's body also responds differently. Like what my mom tried it and didn't have the same, kind of results that I did. So I think everyone has a different relationship with food and their body and food. So you just have to test and see what works for you. Now I've kind of figured out what works for my body. So now when I'm maintaining it, then I'm pretty much eating anything and everything, but in like moderation, and then I'll be good. If I've been really bad, I'll make up for it the next day.
Yeah, that moderation's key. I think that word moderation is huge. And how do you feel in yourself now that you've gone from before to after? Where you were.
Energy levels are a lot better when I actually do intermittent fasting. I'm not bloated. I just think that as a lifestyle, I've just deleted that breakfast from my life. Okay, once in a while, if somebody wants to get breakfast, sure, I'll do it. It's not like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like, oh, this is just during the week I'll do intermittent fasting and the weekend I'll cheat. I just do it all the time because I find it easy to do.
Yeah, yeah. And do you feel like more mentally, stable and stuff like that? Some people say that they do feel like much less of the crashy sort of, the after lunch, crash. You've eaten some lunch, a lot of people, and then they just kind of, that first patient after lunch is like, oh my god, I feel like I'm dying, and then you try to fall back into your chair because you've had so much, and yeah.
Bring like biryani to lunch, then sure, I'm gonna have a food coma even now.
Oh,
but
God.
usually, I like try to eat, not a massive lunch because we're working straight after lunch. So I definitely think that overall energy levels, how you feel, everything changes and is so much better with this lifestyle.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that if the guys out there are definitely struggling or want to change things up, it's definitely something that, from my research last night, which I went very, very deep into, it does seem like it's a definite way to improve things. I think it was a Harvard study, a review. They found it was like really, really effective. So yeah, if people want to look that up, I won't bore you too much because that's my problem. Once I get hooked onto something, I do I put in the Google search studies for, and then you're in the PubMed black hole, and you're clicking on the next link and the next link. It's either PubMed or Wikipedia. I don't know if anyone else has this issue. When someone says something about something, you go, okay, well, I'm gonna put that in, and then click that blue link, and then I'll read it, and I'll click the next blue link, and suddenly you're just like, oh god, it's 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you wanted to ask me? Because I think we're getting towards the end. I think we're just gonna start wrapping up. I think that's been really interesting. We've had some topics that no one's spoken about, and I think the guys out and going out to Kenya, it sounds like a life-changing sort of experience, something that is very rare, that you're going to be able to experience something like that.
Maybe to go to the Mara, I mean, it's a beautiful country, and then if you get to help the Maasai population, the Maasai tribe, like nothing beats that. So
yeah, I think it's one of the things that I definitely want to do. I mean, we did the 24-hour podcast not so long ago. That was for the refugee camp in Bangladesh, but I think this is on the same sort of that spectrum of going out and doing something for people who have no other source of treatment, and you're not doing it for money. You're just doing it for the purity of the dental treatment, as it were, or the purity of helping people in need, which I think a lot of people, that's why they do dentistry or other allied healthcare professionals. That's why we do it, and then we get dragged into kind of the rat race because of debt and because of all these other things, and the materialistic world. Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. We've done, what is that, an hour 40?
Yeah.
Wow. And it wasn't a struggle at all there. I think we could have gone for another hour or two, but you've got some Bollywood dance moves to get to, I think. Yeah, guys, if you're watching still, make sure you head over to Nidhi's profile. I will be linking her profile down in the description of the comments below. Big thank you for coming on, by the way. This has been great.
Yeah.
And I hope we'll catch up. I think we've got more to talk about for sure.
Happy to do that.
Yep, and please, guys, I will be cutting off the little bit of audio issues we had at the start. So I hope you can feel and hear the improvement in the sound quality and the video quality, thanks to the guys in the Patreon group who've kind of funded the new microphone and stuff. So thank you to you guys. If you want to get involved in that, then please have a look at the link, which is also going to be in the description of the video underneath Nidhi's link. You also get a couple of really cool benefits with that as well. We've got a cool Discord chat where there's I think there's 9 or 10 dentists in there now, slowly growing, and we just have, you know, a little bit of a support group almost. We just chat about the random things. So that's really good. And if you also are wanting it, I do one-on-one tutorials for Instagram growth. If you want to know a bit more about that, head over to that link in the bio. So that's my little plug, similar to the intermittent fasting cult. But yeah, this has been great, Nidhi. I think you're going to get a lot of questions about Kenya for sure. I definitely want to catch up with you again some point. Maybe find out a bit more about getting into programs within the States.
Yeah, maybe into an endo program here.
Yeah.
That's my next mission now.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll definitely catch up again soon. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Nidhi. We will be glad to have you again. Sure. Stop.